I have stood in the shadows of oppression and walked through the fire of injustice, not to be consumed, but to be forged by it. And in all my days I have known this to be true, that no domination, whether born of color, class, or creed, can ever claim the moral ground, for it is the enemy of dignity itself. I have fought against white domination, not because I hate those who benefit from it, but because I love justice more than I fear consequence, and I will not rest where one man's skin decides his station. And I have fought against black domination too, because freedom cannot be selective. It cannot serve one hand while enslaving the other. If you wish to call yourself free, then you must wish it for all, even those who once denied it to you. True equality is not a reversal of roles. It is the dismantling of the very pedestal that divides man from man. I did not rise from the dust of suffering to become the mirror image of my oppressor. No. If we replicate the systems of exclusion under a different banner, then we have learned nothing from pain, and our struggle has been in vain. There comes a time when silence is betrayal, when neutrality is complicity, and when one must choose not who they stand with, but what they stand for. I have chosen to stand for the dignity of the human spirit, for the idea that no man is born to rule, and no man is born to kneel. I have chosen the path where the heart is not hardened by vengeance, and the fist does not become the language of the unheard. I have chosen the burden of peace over the comfort of retaliation, because peace, though heavier, builds nations that endure beyond anger. The fight I speak of is not fought with weapons, but with will, with the patience to endure, with the courage to forgive, and with the resolve to never accept injustice as normal. You must understand that those who dominate are often captives themselves, imprisoned by fear, blinded by privilege, and taught to believe in a lie so deeply that truth itself becomes their enemy. But we must reach for that truth regardless, and we must hold it high not as a weapon, but as a light. There will be those who question your strength, who call your patience weakness and your mercy foolishness. Let them speak. Let them underestimate the quiet thunder of justice, the still power of moral clarity. History has never remembered the loudest. It has remembered the bravest, the most unwavering, the most human. And if you struggle, let your struggle be righteous. If you fight, let your fight be clean. Let it never be said that in gaining power, we lost our soul. The arc of the moral universe is long, yes, but it is not self-correcting. It bends because we bend it. With our sacrifice, with our sleepless nights, with our refusal to live as second-class beings in a world built for kings. The struggle is not over, for the conditions of injustice are clever. They change faces, they change flags, they change language, but their root is always the same, the belief that one life matters more than another. And so, we must remain vigilant. We must teach our children that equality is not a favor, but a birthright. That to stand for justice is to stand even when you are alone, and that the highest form of leadership is not dominance, but service. I have not lived my life seeking applause. I have not given years to a cause because it was easy. I have done so because I could not live any other way, and still call myself a man. And so I say to you now, stand firm in what is right, even when the earth beneath you shakes. Stand for those whose voices are stolen, whose lives are trampled, whose hope is fading, and never let the fire in your soul grow dim. For in the end, it is not how long we live that matters, but what we lived for. And if that cause is justice, if that cause is equality, then no prison, no oppressor, no darkness can erase the legacy of your light. Freedom is not a gift wrapped in kindness by the powerful. It is the birthright of the human soul, claimed only by those with the courage to rise, the discipline to endure, and the honor to never forget why they stand. Too often, people wait for justice to arrive at their doorstep, wait for systems to correct themselves, wait for mercy from hands that never knew compassion. But the truth is simple and unforgiving: freedom is never granted willingly by those who benefit from oppression. It must be demanded, claimed, earned. Not through chaos, not through vengeance, but through a quiet, unwavering commitment to what is right. There is no shortcut to liberation. The road is long, narrow, and soaked in sacrifice. It demands of us a strength deeper than muscle, a resolve firmer than iron, and a spirit that does not break in the face of cruelty. You may be tempted to believe that anger alone can lift the chains, but untempered rage can burn down the very house we seek to rebuild. No, true freedom must be approached with clarity, guided by principle, and guarded by discipline. We must be as intentional in our conduct as we are relentless in our cause. I have seen the faces of those who thought power could be begged for. I have seen their hearts break when they learn that oppressors do not yield out of guilt, but only when forced to reckon with the conscience of a people who refuse to kneel. Yet I have also seen the danger of throwing away our humanity in pursuit of revenge. What then would distinguish us from those we resist? What future would we leave our children if we build it with the same tools that built the walls we fought to tear down? Discipline is the bridge between rage and revolution. Honor is the compass that keeps us human, even when the world around us forgets its soul. A people who rise without discipline may overthrow their masters, but never their condition. A people who rise with honor, with vision, with unshakable moral clarity, they do more than change regimes, they change history. We must teach the next generation that shouting is not the same as leading, that a fist raised in anger must be guided by a mind anchored in purpose. Freedom taken by dishonor is no freedom at all. It is merely the exchange of one tyranny for another. That is why we do not rise merely to occupy thrones. We rise to dismantle the very idea that any man was born to rule another. We rise to return dignity to every name, light to every life. The struggle is not only for the body to be unshackled, but for the soul to stand upright and walk without shame. That kind of freedom does not come from speeches. It comes from choices. Day after day to resist hatred, to pursue justice, to stand alone if we must, knowing that integrity is our only true inheritance. And when we walk with discipline and honor, we remind the world of something it forgets too easily: that the oppressed are not broken. They are the architects of their own liberation. We do not need permission to be free. We need only the will to rise, and the wisdom to rise righteously. I have learned that history does not remember the loudest voices. It remembers the strongest principles. It does not record the fury of the mob, but the endurance of those who held fast when the storm came. Do not let your struggle be reduced to noise. Let it be a movement of depth, of meaning, of lasting impact. Take your freedom, but take it with hands clean of hatred. Take it with eyes open to the long road ahead. Take it with hearts ready to heal, even as they bleed. For only then will your freedom not be just a moment in time, but a legacy that outlives you. And when that day comes, when the wall finally falls, when the chains lie shattered on the floor, Let it be said not that we rose in rage, but that we rose in righteousness, that we stood not just for ourselves, but for a world we believed could be better, even when it wasn't. Let your freedom be your finest act of discipline. Let it be the highest honor of your life. They placed me behind walls, but they could not contain my voice. They took away my name in whispers, but they could not erase its meaning. They buried me in silence, but the truth does not rot in darkness. It grows stronger. You see, those who rule through fear believe that bars and brick and steel can silence conviction, that isolation will break the spirit, that the removal of a man from the world is the same as removing his message from history. But they are wrong. For prison, though cold and cruel, has never defeated the voice of truth. It has only given it clarity. When you are stripped of everything, when they take your name, your freedom, your face from the world, what remains is what is eternal, the purpose for which you stood. And that cannot be silenced. In the stillness of captivity, I found the roar of my conscience. In the emptiness of my cell, I discovered that my struggle was not mine alone. It was the voice of the unheard, the dignity of the oppressed, the cry of every child who has ever been told they are less. Let them take away the world's light, for I have lit a fire within that they cannot extinguish. The walls did not mute me. They became my witnesses. The silence they imposed became the canvas upon which history would one day write a louder truth. Every iron gate, every stone floor, every shadowed corner became part of a testimony not of defeat, but of defiance. And in that defiance, there was peace. Not the peace of surrender, but the peace that comes from knowing you have not bent. You have not sold your soul for comfort, and you have not bartered justice for freedom. The truth does not require a platform. It requires courage. It does not need a microphone. It needs a heart that will not yield. Let them exile your body. What matters is whether your principles remain intact. For those who sit in prison cells across the world, who feel forgotten, who feel silenced, I say this: you are not alone, and you are not finished. A just cause cannot be silenced. It echoes in time. It rattles the conscience of generations. What you say in silence, the world will one day hear in thunder. History does not forget the imprisoned righteous. It lifts them as symbols of what it means to stand, when standing is the hardest thing to do. The ones who caged me could never understand that it was not my chains that kept me strong. It was the unshakable belief that my life, even in confinement, still belonged to the struggle. I was not a prisoner. I was a soldier behind walls. They thought my absence from the streets meant the movement had stopped. But they misunderstood the nature of movements. They do not end when one voice is silenced. They multiply. They grow. They gather in whispers and shouts, in pens and songs, in classrooms and courtrooms, in every place where truth still finds breath. My voice lived in those who refused to forget. It lived in every mother who told her child, "You are worthy." It lived in every worker who lifted his head a little higher. It lived in every act of quiet courage when someone dared to say, "No more." And so the lesson remains: you cannot lock away justice. You cannot silence what is right. They may delay its arrival, but they cannot prevent it. It is written into the fabric of humanity itself. And for every day they tried to silence me, I answered with patience, not because I accepted the injustice, but because I knew that enduring it without hate would make my voice louder when the time came. If you ever find yourself in a place where your truth is unwelcome, where your presence is punished, where your belief in dignity costs you your liberty. Do not let them convince you that you have lost. The voice of truth needs no echo. It stands alone, and in time it becomes the anthem of those who rise after you. Speak it, live it, carry it in your bones. For even if the world tries to forget you, the truth will remember. And the truth, once awakened, never sleeps again. Do not speak of justice unless your footsteps walk its path. And do not preach of dignity unless you carry it in your dealings with the smallest and the weakest among us. For the world is weary of voices, but echo with promises, but break like glass under pressure. Let your life be the mirror of the ideals you proclaim, for, in the end, people will not remember what you said, but how you lived. Words have their power, yes, but when they are not backed by sacrifice, by consistency, by moral courage, they are hollow, like drums beaten only for noise. What is principle if it bends under pressure? What is truth if it is only spoken when it costs nothing? You cannot demand from others what you refuse to practice yourself. The struggle for justice does not need more speeches. It needs more examples. It needs men and women whose conduct is so firm, so aligned with what they claim to believe, that even their silence carries authority. It is easy to speak of equality in the light. It is much harder to practice it in the dark, when no one is watching, when standing up may cost you favor, freedom, or friends. But it is in those moments that the soul is measured. The greatest leaders I have known were not those with the loudest voices, but those whose lives became quiet revolutions. Proof that ideals are not meant to be admired from a distance, but worn like armor in the battlefield of daily life. There is no integrity in condemning the whip while building your own chains. If you believe in peace, then be peace under provocation. If you believe in justice, then let your dealings, even with your enemies, be just. If you believe in freedom, then set others free by your words, your choices, your presence. Too many shout for change while living unchanged. Too many call for truth while hiding behind convenience. And yet history does not bow to those who demand comfort. It answers to those who rise when rising is hard. Your example is your legacy. You may not change millions with your voice, but you will change the lives around you with your courage, your patience, your discipline, and your mercy. That is how real revolutions begin, not with grand pronouncements, but with a life lived faithfully in service of what is right. The world does not need more men who can argue. It needs men who can endure. It needs those who do not just speak of fairness, but embody it, even when their own interests suffer. It needs those who walk alone rather than compromise truth for applause. Your actions, your conduct, your integrity, that is the gospel people will read before they listen to your words. If your life contradicts your ideals, then your ideals will be dismissed as fantasy. But if your life affirms them, then even your enemies will be forced to respect your consistency. And so I say, do not live to impress. Live to inspire. Live so that those who come after you will say, believed in justice, and his life proved it. Let your hands be clean, your heart be open, and your decisions be shaped not by fear or ambition, but by a deep and unwavering loyalty to principle. For what does it profit a man to gain the world's praise and lose the light of his own conscience? I have walked through fire not to become famous, but to become faithful to the idea that justice is not a word, it is a way, it is a discipline, it is a daily test, And when your life becomes the mirror of your ideals, you will find a peace that applause cannot offer, and a strength that no prison can break. Then, and only then, will your struggle bear fruit. Not only in your lifetime, but far beyond it, in the lives of those who were watching, who were learning, and who will one day rise, carrying your torch. There were days when my hands trembled, when the unknown loomed like a mountain before me, and fear crept into the corners of my mind like a silent intruder. But I learned, not all at once but slowly, that courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act despite it. We are not made brave because we feel nothing. We are made brave because we choose something greater than our fear. Do not wait to feel unafraid before you stand. Do not wait for the shaking to stop before you speak. The bravest acts are not done by those who feel invincible, but by those who move forward while feeling vulnerable, exposed, and uncertain. Fear is part of the human condition, but so is hope, so is resolve, so is the unbreakable voice inside you that whispers, "Go on." Every person who has ever changed the world did so while carrying fear like a weight on their back, and still they climbed. The question is not whether you are afraid, but whether your purpose is stronger than that fear. I have stood where the cost of defiance was not just reputation but life itself. I have watched men tremble before the machinery of oppression and still find the strength to say, "No." That is courage. Not the denial of danger, but the refusal to surrender to it. Fear will visit you. It may even stay a while. But do not give it your home. Do not let it guide your steps, shape your words, or write your story. Instead, look it in the eye and declare that though it may walk beside you, it will not lead. Each time you speak out when silence is safer, each time you rise when staying low would spare you pain, each time you stand for what is right even when your voice shakes, you are practicing courage. And over time, that courage grows, not because fear disappears, but because your faith in your cause grows louder than the whispers of doubt. Remember, fear can be contagious, but so can courage. One act of bravery can inspire 10 more. One stand taken in the dark can become the dawn for someone else. So never underestimate the quiet revolution. You start by simply refusing to give up. Those who build injustice rely on your fear to keep you silent. They rely on your hesitation to keep things as they are. But when you rise, nervous, uncertain, trembling, but still rising, you tear down the very foundation of their power. They cannot control a soul that is no longer ruled by fear. And they cannot win against a people who have decided, once and for all, that they would rather die standing than live on their knees. That kind of courage is not rare. It lives in every heart that still remembers what freedom feels like, even if only in dreams. It lives in mothers who protect their children with empty hands. It lives in workers who refuse to be crushed by exploitation. It lives in students who challenge lies with questions. It lives in you, not waiting to be found, but waiting to be chosen. So choose it, not just once, but daily, in how you speak, in how you treat others, in what you refuse to tolerate. And when the fear returns, as it will, do not see it as weakness. See it as a reminder that your actions matter, that the stakes are high, that you are not playing small games. Let it sharpen your clarity. Let it deepen your humility, but do not let it stop your stride. The path of courage is not paved with applause or ease. It is paved with doubt, loss, isolation, and the constant temptation to turn back. But those who endure it become more than leaders. They become beacons. They become the proof that it is possible. And the world needs that proof now more than ever. So walk on. Even if your legs shake, even if your voice cracks, even if the night is long and the winds are cold, walk on. For courage is not born in the absence of fear, but in the decision to keep moving when fear calls you to sit down. And if you keep moving, others will follow. Not because you are fearless, but because you showed them they can be brave too. Liberation is not simply the removal of chains from the wrists or the collapse of unjust laws. True liberation begins within. And it cannot exist where bitterness takes root, where vengeance becomes the goal, and where the heart remains shackled by the weight of the past. Many believe that justice and forgiveness cannot walk together, that one must be chosen at the expense of the other. But they are wrong. Justice is the path, and forgiveness is the light that guides us forward without poisoning the soul with hate. I have seen what hatred does to men. It eats from within, it blinds their vision, it distorts their purpose, until their struggle becomes no longer about freedom, but about revenge. And when that happens, we become like those we opposed. The pain we suffered, the injustices we endured, the scars that remain, they are real, and they must be acknowledged. But to cling to them like weapons is to carry the past into the future and call it progress. You cannot build a new world on the foundation of rage. You cannot teach dignity by denying it to others. If we are to be truly free, we must have the courage to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because we do. We deserve to be unburdened by anger. We deserve to live without looking over our shoulder. We deserve to craft a future not defined by our wounds, but by our wisdom. Forgiveness does not mean we forget. It means we remember with clarity, but choose to rise above. It means we understand the damage done, but refuse to pass it on to our children. It is not weakness. It is the greatest test of strength. Anyone can hold a grudge. It takes courage to lay it down. Anyone can seek retribution. It takes vision to seek reconciliation. I have looked into the eyes of men who once denied me my freedom, and I chose not to hate them. Not because I was unhurt, but because I would not let them define who I would become. They had taken enough. I would not give them my spirit too. I chose to forgive so that I could be free. You must understand this: forgiveness is not for the oppressor. It is for the oppressed. It is the final act of resistance. It is saying, you no longer control how I feel. You no longer control how I move forward. That is power. And in that power there is peace. Real peace. Not the silence of guns or the pause between conflicts, but the deep, enduring peace that comes when the soul no longer thirsts for revenge. Some will say, they do not deserve our forgiveness. And they may be right, but we do not offer it for their sake. We offer it for ours. Because we know that to heal a nation, to heal a people, to heal a life, you must clean the wound, not simply cover it. And that cleansing must begin with truth, yes, but also with mercy, with understanding, with a willingness to say, what happened was wrong, but it will not define what comes next. I do not ask you to forget your pain. I ask you to rise above it. I ask you to look at those who harmed you and say, you no longer control the story. That is liberation. That is the moment the chain falls, not from your body, but from your heart. And that moment is the beginning of a new chapter, not just for you, but for everyone who walks in your footsteps. We are not just fighting for freedom from injustice. We are fighting for the freedom to love again, to trust again, to believe again. That is what forgiveness makes possible. And so, let us not only break the chains that bound us, but the hatred that hardened us. Let us be known not just as those who survived cruelty, but as those who transcended it. Let the world learn from our example that forgiveness is not the absence of justice, but the presence of wisdom, and in that wisdom lies the future, a future that is not built on fear, but on hope, not on division, but on dignity, not on wounds, but on healing. For there is no liberation, none, without forgiveness. The true strength of any nation is not found in the wealth it possesses, nor in the power it wields, but in the unity of its people. It is in the quiet solidarity of those who stand together, despite their differences, despite their struggles, despite their histories. The bond between us is not defined by the uniformity of our thoughts or our appearances, but by the collective will to rise above division and build something greater than ourselves. A nation that is fractured cannot stand. Its foundation is weak, its direction unclear. But when the people stand united, when they come together in the pursuit of a common goal, there is no force stronger than that bond. Unity does not mean uniformity. It does not mean we all think the same, act the same, or even agree on every issue. It means that we respect the dignity of one another, that we recognize the common humanity that binds us, and that we are willing to place the good of the whole above our individual grievances. True unity is forged in the fires of adversity. It is born not in times of ease, but in the moments when division would seem to be the easiest path. It is easy to be united when all is well, when the sun is shining and the wind is at your back. But the true test of a people's strength comes when the storms of injustice, inequality, and division tear at the fabric of society. It is in those moments that we must choose. Will we be torn apart by our differences, or will we find strength in the things that bring us together? The unity of a people is not some abstract ideal. It is a living, breathing force that moves through the hearts and minds of every individual who refuses to allow fear or hatred to divide them. When we choose to see the person beside us as an ally rather than an enemy, when we choose to listen before we judge, when we choose to extend compassion, even when it is difficult, that is when the strength of a nation is born. A divided nation cannot build anything of lasting value, but a united nation, united not by force, but by shared purpose, by shared vision, can move mountains. It can break chains. It can create a future where all its people, regardless of race, religion, or background, have the opportunity to thrive. I have seen this strength in action, in the smallest acts of kindness, in the quiet moments of cooperation, in the powerful movements of people who, despite facing unimaginable odds, refuse to be divided. It is in the workers who labor side by side, regardless of their past, knowing that their strength lies in their shared effort. It is in the parents who teach their children the value of compassion, of respect, of solidarity. It is in the leaders who, despite their differences, come together to build a common future, knowing that their nation's future depends not on their individual triumphs, but on the collective triumph of the people they serve. And so, I say to you, do not let the forces of division have their way. Do not let the voices of hate drown out the voices of reason, of compassion, of unity. For the strength of your nation lies in your unity, and it is that unity that will carry you through the darkest times. When the winds of hatred blow, stand together. When the fires of injustice burn, stand together. When the temptation to turn on one another rises, stand together. For in unity there is power. There is nothing a united people cannot achieve. Nothing. It is this unity that will carry your nation to heights of greatness, to a future where all are free to pursue their dreams, where all are treated with dignity, and where the bonds that hold you together are stronger than any force that seeks to tear you apart. Remember, a nation is not its government, it is its people. And when those people stand as one, when they stand for what is just, for what is right, for what is true, then they will not only be the strength of their nation, they will be its future. The future is not something that is given to us, nor is it something we can expect to come without effort, without sacrifice, without persistence. It is not found in the comfort of waiting, but in the courage to act. The future belongs not to those who sit idly and hope for change, but to those who dedicate themselves to working for it, to those who wake up every day knowing that every small effort, every choice they make, contributes to the larger purpose. It is easy to dream of a better tomorrow, but dreams alone cannot build anything. It is only when we turn those dreams into action, when we commit ourselves to the daily work, the steady persistence, and the quiet sacrifices that change begins to take root. The future belongs to those who understand that nothing worth having comes easily, that every victory is the result of struggle, and every step forward is earned with hard work. Too often, we believe that the future will simply unfold if we wait long enough, that others will bring the change we need. But I tell you this, the future is forged by the hands of those who refuse to accept the present as it is. It is built by those who see the world not just for what it is, but for what it can become. And those who see it, those who dream of a better world, must then have the will to do what it takes to make it happen. The future is shaped by those who understand that every act of kindness, every step toward justice, every effort to create equality, every decision to fight for the dignity of others, builds toward the tomorrow we seek. It may seem like an overwhelming task, but every great movement, every revolution, every triumph for humanity began with individuals who decided that the world would not be changed without their hands in the effort. They did not wait for others. They did not wait for the right moment. They did not wait for circumstances to be perfect. They saw the work ahead, and they embraced it, knowing that each action, each effort, no matter how small, was a piece of the puzzle that would eventually create the world they dreamed of. And so, I ask you, what will your hands build? What will your words create? What will your heart fight for? Will you sit by and wait for change, or will you make it? The future does not belong to the complacent. It does not belong to those who are content with the way things are. The future belongs to those who see injustice and decide to confront it. It belongs to those who see inequality and choose to challenge it. It belongs to those who understand that a brighter tomorrow will not come from waiting. It will come from action, from sacrifice, and from the tireless efforts of those who refuse to accept that the way things are is the way they must always be. You may not always see the fruits of your labor immediately. Change often takes time. The path is long, and the road may be hard. But that is no excuse to give up. The future is built on perseverance, on the quiet persistence of those who refuse to quit, who refuse to be dissuaded by setbacks or by the discouragement of others. When you plant a seed, you do not expect to eat the fruit the next day. but you plant it nonetheless, because you know that the future harvest depends on the work you do now. The future belongs to those who keep working, even when it seems like the work is endless. It belongs to those who understand that the struggle is not a burden to be avoided, but a responsibility to be embraced. It is in the struggle that the future is forged. It is in the work that the future takes shape. And when you give yourself to that work, when you dedicate yourself to making the world better, when you refuse to be discouraged or deterred by obstacles, you will find that the future does not belong to some distant, far-off place. It is here, in your hands, in your heart, in your daily actions. The future is not tomorrow, it is today, and it begins with the choices you make right now. So choose to work, choose to act, choose to build, because the future belongs to those who work for it. True leadership is not measured by the title you hold, the authority you command, or the accolades that come with your name. It is measured by the service you offer to those who follow you. Leadership is not a crown to be worn, but a responsibility to be carried, and it is carried best not when you demand respect, but when you earn it through your actions. Those who lead do not do so from above, but from within, standing alongside those they lead, not as masters, but as servants, servants to the cause, servants to the people, servants to the vision of a better world. The greatest leaders I have known were not those who sought to control or manipulate, but those who sought to empower others. They did not use their position for personal gain, but to uplift those around them, to guide them with wisdom, to inspire them with humility, and to serve them with dedication. True leadership is about recognizing that your role is to make those around you stronger, not to make yourself greater. It is about listening to the voices of those you lead, understanding their needs, and responding to them with compassion, with integrity, and with a sense of justice. Leadership is about sacrifice. It is about laying down your own desires for the greater good. It is about seeing the potential in others and drawing it out, not by force, but by encouragement and example. A leader is someone who inspires others to find their own strength, to rise above their own limitations, to believe in themselves when they have forgotten how. Leadership is not a position. It is a duty, a call to serve. Those who lead must understand that their power comes not from their authority, but from their ability to serve others with honesty, with fairness, and with the courage to do what is right, even when it is difficult. It is not the title you hold that makes you a leader. It is your actions, your heart, and the trust others place in you. You can be the president of a nation, the head of a company, or the leader of a movement. But if you do not serve those around you, then your leadership is hollow. True leaders understand that their power is not in their position, but in their ability to bring people together, to rally them for a cause greater than themselves, to show them that their lives matter, that their voices are heard, and that their struggles are acknowledged. It is not about being first or being the loudest. It is about putting others before yourself, about lifting them up when they are down, about guiding them through uncertainty, and about showing them the way with love and humility. Service is not a sacrifice, it is a privilege. It is the chance to make a real difference, to shape the world not by command, but by example. It is the chance to leave a legacy, not of power, but of humanity. In service, we find the true measure of leadership. When you lead with your heart, when you lead with your hands ready to build, When you lead with your eyes focused on the future of those who follow you, you will find that the respect you gain is not forced, but freely given. Leadership is not about ruling over others. It is about showing others the path and walking that path with them. It is about teaching them not to follow you, but to lead themselves. True leadership is not about authority. It is about service. About serving the people you lead, serving the ideals you believe in, and serving the greater good. And when you lead with service, you will discover that you are not just shaping the lives of others, you are also shaping your own legacy, one built not on power, but on respect, one earned not by domination, but by compassion, and one lasting not because of what you demanded, but because of what you gave. We are all architects of our own destiny, for the decisions we make today shape the future we will live tomorrow. Life does not happen to us. It is shaped by us, by the choices we make, the paths we choose to follow, and the actions we take. While the world may present obstacles, challenges, and adversity, it is not these external forces that define who we become, it is our response to them. No one is born into greatness. No one is born into success or failure. We are born with potential, with possibility, and with the power to decide what that potential will become. The world will try to tell you what you can and cannot do. But the truth is that the only limits you face are the ones you place on yourself. We all have the capacity to be something greater than what we are today, to rise above our circumstances, to transcend our past, and to build something extraordinary. But to do so, we must take responsibility for our own lives. We must take ownership of our actions, our thoughts, and our dreams. We cannot sit idly by and wait for change to come. We must create that change ourselves. It is easy to blame the world, to blame others, to point to our hardships and say, "This is why I cannot succeed." But that mindset will keep us trapped. We must recognize that our circumstances do not determine our future. Our choices do. Every decision, no matter how small, is a brick in the foundation of our future. And it is up to us whether we build with integrity, with purpose, and with the courage to stay true to what we believe in, or whether we allow the forces of fear, doubt, and complacency to dictate the shape of our lives. Do not wait for someone else to define your path. Do not wait for permission to live the life you envision. The power to create the life you want is within you, and it is yours to wield. The future is not written for you, it is written by you, with every choice you make, with every step you take, and with every dream you dare to follow. You are the architect of your destiny, and you must not allow anyone or anything to take that power from you. Life will challenge you. There will be moments when the road seems impassable, when the weight of the world feels too heavy, when the dream you are working toward seems far out of reach. But remember, no great achievement was ever reached without struggle. Every person who has ever shaped the course of history, who has ever broken barriers or overcome obstacles, has done so by continuing to build, even when the blueprint seemed uncertain. Your destiny will not be defined by the obstacles in your path. It will be defined by your determination to keep moving forward. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are the creator of your circumstances. You are not a passive observer of your life. You are an active participant in it, and you have the power to decide what happens next. So, build your destiny with intention. Build it with resilience. Build it with the strength of knowing that, no matter how many times you fall, you have the power to rise again. Build it with the understanding that the journey will not be easy, but it will be worth it. Build it with the knowledge that you are not alone. There are others who walk beside you, who share your dreams, who support your vision, and who are also creating their own destinies. Together, we are all architects, building not just our own futures, but the future of our communities, our families, and our world. Do not wait for the world to hand you your destiny. Go out and take it. You have everything within you to build the life you dream of. And when you look back, years from now, at the path you have walked, you will see that the greatest legacy you leave behind is not the things you acquired, but the life you built, a life of purpose, a life of integrity, a life of courage. The future is yours to create. The blueprint is in your hands.